Nemsis 3. Really not that bad. It's just going to make you do more work. But in the long run, it'll be better for you, it'll be better for your agency, and it'll be better for the system. So tonight's objectives are going to give you an introduction in history of EPCR data. We're going to tell you what is an EPCR. Oops, and if I hit the right key, it'll move. And then we're going to talk about what happens to your EPCR and what does your region do. What do Jeff and Bill do with it? Are all of you in the Hudson Valley region? Okay. What is New York State? What do I do with it? What does Mike do with it? Why should your EMTs at all levels care? Why should your agency leaders care? And then we're going to talk about the Nemsis transition. So, introduction and history of EPCR data. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and by the way, Mike has given this presentation to program agencies before. We spent 25 minutes talking about how the PCR started back before Johnny and Roy. I'm shrinking it to 2 minutes. So, because there are other things I want to cover in the 2 hours. But he wanted to come along on this trip, so I gave him a task and I told him I was going to talk about it. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, part of the federal government, wanted to understand what happens in traffic collisions across the country and how does EMS respond to those. So eventually they came up with this national data set. They established a National Office of EMS, which is part of NHTSA, and they established a national EMS data set. We're going to talk about that a little later. And we're moving from 2.2.1 to 3.4.0. And personally, the way I pitch it is we're moving from Windows 95 to Windows 10. Same theories, same concept, we're just making it better. I don't remember working on Windows 95 because I was too young to have a computer at that point. They hired the Nemsis TAC, Technical Assistance Center out in Utah, and then how your data flows. Provider documents on an EPCR, they press send. Sometimes your agency looks at them before they send them. Before they send the PCR on to the hospital, sometimes they look at it after they send it to the hospital and say, what were you thinking, or great job, or somewhere in between. So they finish that and then they send it off goes off to the hospital, then it goes off to the New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Emergency Medical Services and Trauma Systems, and then eventually we send it to the Nemsis TAC. So they can do some data analysis across the country. That's really, in a short nutshell, what happens to your EPCR data. Now, occasionally, if your agency is having issues, you might hear from Jeff. Yeah, when I went down to the Hudson Valley REMSCO 3 months ago.
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, we met with an agency down there, and we talked about their data problems, and we researched it back for them, and we set them on a pathway, and they're doing better, from what I understand.
Yep.
So, and we're going to talk about what happens with validation scores and what all that means for you. So, quickly, what is it? I thought you were raising your hand. I'm going to torment him for 2 days. What is a PCR or an EPCR? A PCR is an essential part of a pre-hospital medical care which must include key components. Certain data points are necessary. A hospital needs demographic information, you need demographic information. Who does billing in here? You need demographic information so you know who you can bill on, but you also need to make sure you're identifying the right patient, and for the right services. So key components, what did you do? Did it make them better? Did it make them worse? Did it stay the same? Did you give them oxygen? Did it make them better? Did it make it worse? Did it stay the same? Did you give them a drug? Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? Did it stay the same? You're going to hear me hammer those points out tonight, because those are the 3 most common data points missed or skipped on an EPCR in Nemsis 2.2.1. Is what happened after you did something. Did it make the patient better? Did it stay the same? Or did it get worse? And it's necessary for continued care at a hospital. Those of us who are providers have walked into a hospital, we've gone into trauma 1, this is ER. This is Chicago Hope. This is Johnny and Roy. Granted, they gave everybody sodium bicarb and it cured everything. But I never quite understood that after I took my first ALS class. I never gave sodium bicarb as an ALS provider, just out of curiosity. Yeah. But then again, after 18 years in EMS, I finally used a traction splint. So, never had anybody with a broken femur. So, but they're necessary for continued care in a hospital. It's important that the hospital have the information. You can give the most awesome report in Trauma 1 to a room filled with doctors and residents and nurses and patient care techs and respiratory therapy and IV techs, and radiology standing outside with their portable x-ray machine, and CT scan is prepped and ready to go. But 5 minutes after you left, what are the chances that doc's going to remember every single thing that you said? They're not. Because there's all sorts of information flowing into that doctor all at once, and from there they have to make some decisions. They're going to catch the key salient points, but seeing your paperwork later is going to be important for that for many reasons down the road. Not just for billing, but more so for identifying what went wrong. One of the skills I developed after becoming an EMT was the ability to be amazingly observant when I'm picking up somebody. Where there's syringes laying around the house, where there are empty pill bottles. When were the pill bottles filled? Were there weapons? Was there a knife under the pillow? Was there a gun under the pillow? Was there a gun on display? Do the kids have strange marks on their wrists, on their hands, or on their legs? Did the adult have strange marks, or the senior have strange marks on their wrists, their hands, or their legs? Do they have strangely broken nose? Is this the 5th time you've been there for a broken bone? For a kid or a senior? You start to learn these things, you start to observe these things. These are important things to document. Not only are we mandatory reporters for child abuse, if we're an EMT, but we can also help a senior improve their living environment as well. Because sometimes they're not meant, or they shouldn't be going back to that environment. They need to understand the environment they're in. And that's not always the easiest thing to convey out loud to the patient sitting in front of you. And PCR, at the back of the room, and if we ran out I have more, was New York State Department of Health Policy 1202. PCR should be completed every time an EMS agency is dispatched for a response. Now I had someone ask me, I was in another region, someone asked me, we get sent to the superhighway, all the time. And we get there and someone going the other direction was freaking out. So they dialed 911. So fire, EMS, and law enforcement go. Who's the first one to arrive? Law enforcement. They get there and they're like, there's nothing here. Cancel fire and EMS. If we find it, we'll call them back. And the person said to me, she's a county coordinator up there, excuse me, and she says to me, oh, we don't write those down. We don't write PCRs on there. I said, really? Why is that? She says, because that's annoying. I said, well, that's the wrong answer. I said, because first off, New York State Department of Health Policy 1202 says every time you dispatch, you write a PCR. Doesn't mean you're going to bill for it, because billing's not the only part of doing it. Documentation is data. Data drives decisions. If you have the data that says, you know what, we did 500 responses last year. I know that's a small number for some of you, but it's a very large number for my squad. But we did 500 responses last year. We transported 350. 150 times we went out the door. That's 150 times your members responded from home. It's 150 times you turned on the ambulance, pulled it out of the bed, put your lives in danger by turning on the lights and sirens, or responding out on the street, in the snow, in the rain, on the dirt, on the leaves, in the fresh rain, on a paved road with this light layer of oil on it. It's all a danger every single time. Every single time you get in the ambulance. So, but you now have the data that says 150 times we were called out. We use fuel to do that. Diesel's cheap, it's only $1 a gallon, right? I don't pay the bills, but I know how much it is. So it's an important thing to think about, how come you use so much diesel if you only billed for 350 calls last year? Because we actually responded to 500. So data drives decisions. At some point, those numbers can climb. If you have the data, it helps you out with that. It also helps us out to know how busy our system actually is. If you're submitting your ePCR data timely, effectively, and accurately, we're going to be able to look at that data and say, you know what? They are very busy. Let's look at their numbers. Let's look at the numbers. They may not have transported every time, they may not have seen a patient every time, but they were out the door 500 times last year. You know what? Out of the 550 calls their agency had, they only missed 50. You know, for some volunteer areas, that's 10%. That's actually not bad. But look at what those causes were. The data helps you drive decisions, and data helps you make decisions on how you're moving into the future. And, oh, this is my favorite. They may be used in a legal proceeding. Now, personally, I like it when the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe sends us an authorized release and we mail them off the PCR and they never call us again. I don't like it when they send you a summons for a deposition. That was 3.5 hours of my life I'm never getting back. And as I called Mike when I was done, I said I never wanted a vodka screwdriver at 3 in the afternoon. But what happens to your EPCR?
Can you go back to where you're supposed to do a PCR for each time we're dispatched?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't roll off the floor, we don't have the manpower,
if you don't respond, then you don't need to do a PCR.
What?
If you don't respond, you don't need to do a PCR.
Thank you.
But you roll that thing out the door, you write a PCR.
Right.
So what happens to your EPCR? Your EMT, and when I use the word EMT, it's not just a basic. You could be an AEMT, you could be a critical care tech, or you could be a paramedic, but we're all EMTs. Completing a PCR. The PCR data, the fax is sent to the receiving hospital, however your system is set up. I'm not telling you how to set up your system, I'm simply telling you that this is what they do. And then your EPCR data is transmitted to the state bridge. Sometimes with some programs that happens right away. Happens within 10 minutes, it queues up and it sends, and my magical little system out in Minnesota, can't believe I can say I've been to Minnesota, but my magical little system in Minnesota receives it, and I get to report on it. Yeah, and then you can use it for quality improvement. So let me tell you a little story. Y'all have okay, I have cousins in the South. Just go with the flow on that. Last fall, I was asked to do a report on the collaborative protocols. You all participate in all your agencies participate in the collaborative protocols because you're north of New York City. And they wanted to know how many EMTs, how many AEMTs, how many critical care techs, and how many paramedics were doing chest decompressions, were doing endotracheal intubations, nasotracheal intubations, how many video laryngoscopies were being done, and how many supraglottic airways were being performed. So I have access to all the regions. I have a lot of access. So I ran the report, and I'm looking at it going, we have some problems. So we had an agency out west that every cardiac arrest they did a chest decompression. I'm like, that's fairly aggressive. And they're also basics. I'm a basic. The hell am I missing in my EMT class? I'm looking and I'm looking, and so I go out and I look. I called the program agency. I said, "You sure there are only basics at this squad?" And the program agency, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Well, I'm going to send you a report. Just look at this." So they did, say, 10 to 15 cardiac arrests the previous year. They did. On every single one of them, they did a chest decompression. I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. So I said, "Are you running a study to see if basics can do chest decompressions at cardiac arrest?" No. "You have any agencies in your region doing this?" No. So they called the agency and they said, "Why are you doing a chest decompression on every cardiac arrest?" And they're like, "Well, what do you mean? We have to do it's CPR."
Oh my Lord.
They didn't know the difference between a decompression and a compression. The program agency called my back and said, "I'm going to assume that you have corrected their misunderstanding." Oh, very clearly. But
was it the same technicians?
I'm sorry?
Was it the same technicians?
No, they were consistent across the agency. So the entire agency was updated. There was nobody in this area. So There are some other documentation misunderstandings. So how many basic life support agencies are there in here? Okay. You all intercept with paramedics occasionally. You know, you have a chest pain call, a trauma call. You know, do you document on the check boxes what the paramedic is doing? No, the paramedic does that. We had a guy out west who was documenting everything the paramedic was doing. So I'm like, So contacted the program agency and I said, methinks you have another problem. So there's some documentation misunderstandings. You know, and it's important to understand, you know, what those mean for on a quality improvement basis. Remember on the previous slide, I talked about your documentation may be used in a legal proceeding. So imagine that the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe calls you up, you know, on the stand in a civil case, and they start asking you some questions. And you know, they'll get you comfortable, they'll get you relaxed. My lawyer prepped me for my deposition last year. And they'll get you comfortable, then they'll relax, then they'll start dinging you. Because once you're comfortable, then you're a little less uneasy, you know, a little more comfortable. And then they, you know, they go through and then they start saying, so, you're a basic EMT, right? Yes. You know, what did you learn in EMT class? You know, you outline some things. Did you learn how to do this? No, that's what a paramedic does. Yeah, and that's some things. So why does your paperwork say you did the following? Oh, silly me. It's a legal record. You know, it's not just boxes on a form. It's not just that. It's part of the patient's medical record. It's not just boxes on a form. You know, I had a guy argue with me in another region. He says, well, I know I don't like doing mileage on a call. Okay, I don't particularly care for it either because it's a distraction when I drive to have to write it down. And he says, well, I always write down that we start at mile 1 and we end at 34.2 because that's how far it is to get from whatever adult home to the hospital. We go there 3 times a week. Okay, so you get on the stand and the lawyer says to you, is this your first call with this ambulance? How long have you had it? It's a 2013. You haven't done any calls with it yet? And how come your mileage says you was mile 1? Oh, and there your credibility's already gone. So, but you also look at it from a QI perspective inside your agency. Are you practicing within your protocols? You know, how long are you spending on scene for a trauma? You know, the golden hour is what they always taught me when I took EMT class. How long are you spending on scene? You can look at, you know, how long you're doing it, how long it takes you to do some things. Do you have extended extrication? That happens. People like to wrap cars around trees all the time. You know, people like to wrap their feet around, you know, gas pedals. They may not like the end result, but, you know, it takes a little time to get them out of the car. You know, so, you know, how long is it taking you to get off the scene of the trauma? How long are you spending on the scene of the STEMI? Did you call the hospital ahead on, did you give a stroke alert? You know, when you're picking up a potential stroke patient, did you do your blood glucose on the first set of vital signs? How long did it take you to do the sugar? You know, in the first round of vital signs. Most people can do a blood glucose. If you can't, well, obviously it's not done. But, you know, are you doing everything that's expected or that they're hoping for on these calls? Are you doing everything you can for your patients within the scope of practice that you have? And look at it and say, if you're not, how can we improve our process? That's part of what quality improvement is all about. It's not just, oh, look, Johnny, you spelled this word wrong. Yeah, I have a lot of people who can't spell. Yeah, but they wanted me to turn that off. You know, but it's an opportunity to see how you can make your care better as a system. How long is it taking you to get out the door? How long is it taking you on your average call to get to the hospital? You know, are you using lights and sirens judiciously? These are all decisions your agency can take a look at, and those are just a few. You know, talk to your medical director, talk to your QI committee about what you'd like to do, but these are all things you can look at, and you can do it much more easily with data. How many calls a year does MSTAR do?
We're on track to do about 24,000 this year.
Do you read every PCR?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes. For billing.
God love you. But you do or your staff does? Are you the only biller?
No, me and my staff.
Right, but I mean, you don't read every single
I
PCR
don't
yourself.
know.
Right, your
But
staff does.
everyone gets read, yes.
Right, but you don't personally read it.
No.
No. And there's no way you could.
No,
You'd never sleep.
no,
That may be their intent, but you would never sleep. You know.
right.
How many calls do you do a year? Does your agency do a year?
EMS, about 600,
600.
a little under.
Do you read all of the PCRs? No, there's no way you could. But looking at using your data that comes through, you know, you can sign into your image trend account on behalf of your agency, or you can use, do you have UPCR?
Yes.
Okay. You can sign in and use image trend to help you get some data, so you can look at it. You know, and if you have questions about running reports in Nemsis 2.2.1, your help desk is sitting right over there. You know, Jeff is very good at it, because if he can't get it out, guess who his help desk is? Standing right up here. And he calls me and I'm like, okay, you gotta give me a day to absorb your question. You know, so, and then I look and I take the report apart and I put it back together and I say, is this doing what you want? I run reports all day, every day. Mike could tell you my first 2 weeks trying to run reports, I couldn't get it. I either had a report that spit out 0 data, or I spit out every single PCR we had in the system. I somehow had to narrow that down, and eventually something clicked upstairs, and I said, oh, if I do this and this and this, and then I got data, and then I got very excited. And he had no idea what the guy hired him, sitting at the desk in front of him, how excited I got. So, but you can use this data to evaluate your system. You know, for MSTAR, for you, are you staffing or deploying your ambulances effectively? The EMS data can help you with that. I'm sure you already do that. I'm sure your agency already does that.
We do.
If you're doing 25,000, I hope your agency is doing that. just an educated guess, but. Yeah. My agency does 400 a year. I look at it for mine. So, and then, you know, if Jeff and the REMSCO and the REMAC want to do a quality improvement study, or if they want to look at how many RSIs or MFIs are done in the region. Where are they being done? How often are they being done? You know, how many, you know, are there 2 qualified techs, 2 qualified paramedics on every RSI or MFI? You know, if that's the standard, excuse me, here in the Hudson Valley region. You know, how much time are they spending on the scene for a STEMI? How much time are they spending on the scene for cardiac arrest? How many cardiac arrests are being transported? How many are being called on the scene? How much naloxone is being administered in the area? Where is it being administered? How is it being done? Are the BLS providers using the naloxone? Are we giving accurate reports on it? These are all questions that get thrown my way. You know, what was a big issue in pre-hospital emergency medicine 2 years ago? 3 years ago? What was the single most expensive drug you carried that a basic could administer 2 to 3 years ago? EpiPens. You know, and every ambulance having 2 adult, 2 junior EpiPens is probably $2,000 for some agencies, depending on where you ordered from. Now, with the work of the CMAC and the SEMSCO, we're carrying syringe Epi. I'm very happy to pay less than $100 to get all of my ambulances stocked with syringe Epi. Data drives those decisions. You know, how many times are we administering this? How can we work to make it more effective, you know, and more cost effective for agencies that are not exactly overflowing with cash? MSTAR is a commercial company. You have 25 million in reserves?
No.
No. No. Neither does any other BLS agency in the state. So, or ALS agency in the state for that matter. You know, municipal agencies, they're not going to have boatloads of money to spend on it either. And they're going to look at it from a cost-benefit analysis because data drives decisions. Dollars drive decisions as well. Data drives dollars. So what does REMSCO do with your ePCR data? Well, Jeff's going to look to see that you're setting your data on time. Bless you. And why is Jeff going to do that? Because if he doesn't, his crazy little EMS data coordinator at the state is going to remind him that he needs to do that. Because I do quarterly reports on data. I am not a state employee. I was hired by a company called Health Research Incorporated, HRI. And I'm hired on a grant through the Center for Disease Control, through the Prescription Drug Overdose Program, and about 17 other acronyms over in the Corning Tower that I don't know what all of them mean. I just know they ask for numbers. So my job is to report on naloxone administrations across the state. So every quarter I have to do a report. And as part of that report, I look to make sure that we're getting all the data. So say MSTAR has a blip in their system, what documentation system do you use?
Zoll.
Zoll. So say MSTAR has a blip in your system, and you go to send your data, but you don't realize it doesn't come through. Jeff's going to call you and say, "Ooh, knock, knock, knocking on the door here. There's a problem with your data." I had an ePCR software vendor that is normally very efficient and effective at sending us data. And on June 28th of last year, they sent us, or they stopped sending us data at all. They have a lot of agencies across the state. And I'm looking, and I was like, this agency hasn't had any, this one hasn't had any, this one hasn't had any. Oh, there's a problem. So, and I noticed it by around July 9th or 10th. So I called the software vendor and I said to him, "Is there a problem?" This is the single best answer I've gotten since working here at the Bureau. "If you're calling the answer is yes, I just don't know what it is." I love that answer. And I tell the guy at the software vendor, I said, "That is my favorite one to say that I'm going out in public and talking about the program." And he's like, "Knock your socks off, just don't tell them who we are." And I said, "Okay." So you do timely submission checks. You do validation score checks. You know, is your documentation meeting the expectations? You know, there are validation checks on every ePCR that's sent across the system. You know, the biggest one that Mike always talks about when we go out is you have a female patient of childbearing years. Did you ask her if there was a chance she could be pregnant? Now, sometimes you're not able to ask because they're unresponsive, but it is still a question that has to be asked. If you don't, you lose points. Some of the questions, you can lose 50 points. You can get really dinged and go from blue, which is good, all the way to red, which is obviously not. And you can do that in 2 questions.
Breathing.
What's that?
Are they breathing?
Are they breathing?
Breathing was 50, right?
Yes. Yeah, and then you look at it and say, why are my validation scores so low? That was actually the question I was asked the day I came to the Hudson Valley Romscott. All right, let's go back. I can show you how to do that. So we went back and he's like, "Are you kidding? That's why I'm getting these lousy scores?" Yeah, and then he says, "Let me pull up my software." He has a web-based program. And he says, "My question's there." I said, "So then your problems with your platform. Then you have to tell your software vendor that your data's not coming across to the state line. It's not my fault." Allow me to repeat that. It's not my fault. You can throw daggers at me with your eyes all you want, but if the data starts out and doesn't cross the barrier well, it's not my fault. You know, because every other platform in the state is doing it right. So I did one of these programs in another region, and they're like, you know, they kept hammering the point. I'm like, "Go back to your software vendor. It's not working." So they eventually did, and they're like, "Okay, we have better scores now." So I was happy with that. Some software vendors don't let you close your PCR until your data is accurate, until it's done. Others will let you close it and aren't as attentive to that. And some of that you can see when you're completing your PCR. Now, I will not, and I cannot recommend a platform to use. I cannot and will not recommend a software vendor to use. I can tell you to look around, check what you're looking, who your agency is, and make a values-based decision on data, you know, and what you're looking for. So if your validation scores are low, your help desk is going to be calling you, because you know what? He looks at all this stuff, and if he has questions about it, he calls me, and we walk through the process of looking to see what your problems are. And there are reports on Image Trend that are available that will show you, and they're available to you, that will show you where your problems are. You know, and in some cases, you know, it's a simple problem to resolve. Whether it's just a mapping issue, or there's a glitch in the system, you go back, you find the glitch, you fix it, and your scores improve. It's that simple. Yes,
Tell
sir.
us where we can go to look at these validations.
How about you ask me that question when I get to the end of the PowerPoint, and I'll show you. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Happy to. I do that every day. Quality improvement studies. You know, the REMAC says we want to look at how long you're spending on time with STEMIs. What is the time? You know, what are the 3 questions or what are the for strokes and STEMIs? They want to know door to balloon, door to CAT scan. I was getting backwards. door to balloon for a STEMI, door to the CAT scan for a stroke. How long is it taking them to do that? Single key diagnostic step, both of them need. How long is it taking to happen? You do, your providers are documenting well, and communicating well with your hospitals, and documenting well in your PCRs. You can see that we're getting people to the CAT scan, we're getting them to the scan, to the cath lab faster. I've taken patients directly to the CAT scan. They come out, within 20 minutes they're either on TPA or they're on their way to a neurosurgical center. Improved outcomes. We're part of a system that works. We can work with it, with those. They also look at system analysis. How are we doing covering calls? Are we meeting the calls in a key area? Is mutual aid being used heavily in some areas? Are some agencies, volunteer agencies have problems during the day? What times a day are those calls going out that the other agencies are doing mutual aid for? They can pull the data, they can do some study, they can look at that, they can do a pivot table, they can do a chart, they can do a graph, they can do all sorts of things to make it look pretty, but they can pull the data and analyze it from there. And Jeff is very, very good at that. There are also public health initiatives. How much naloxone are we using? Hot topic even to the federal government level. Obviously that's why I'm employed. Very happy that I'm employed. Sorry that it's for that reason. But data helps us understand that. Data helps us improve the system that we're in because we're able to provide some backup for it. So what do I do with your data? I look at your validation scores as well, but I tend to look at them by your software vendor. I will look at them from a regional perspective. And occasionally I'll look at them by the provider. Depending on, if we're digging into an issue, we'll dig down to that. Mike could tell you, he sits right behind me. I put my earphones on. If I'm in the zone, and I'm in the data zone, and I'm in digging and trying to find the root cause of a data problem in a particular area, my headphones are hooked to my telephone. So he's had to pick up his phone, dial mine, which now that we have VoIP phones is a 10-digit number, not a 7-digit number, and call me directly. Just to say, what are you doing for lunch? But that's how deep I get into what I'm doing when I'm looking to solve a problem. Just today, between today and yesterday, I got a problem for a county south of here, not in this region, and they were like, how come your numbers are so different than what the city is reporting, the city that they're in? And I'm like, I don't know. So we're looking through. I called the agency, and I spoke to the software vendor, and I'm like, oh dear God, they have a mapping problem. And I looked right at the report that came through, was on the phone with the software provider. Okay, he got into their program, and he says, here's why. I said, all right, your group is going to Nemsis 3 soon. Let's talk about how we can make this better. So by working together, then the agency called. I stepped away from my desk for 5 minutes, and that's when the phone rings. Mike answered the phone. He says, you should call these people back. So I called him back, and the guy said, I've got everybody here. Everybody who can help you solve your problem. I said, well, I already fixed it. Well, we're already in the process of fixing it. I said, here's what you're going to need to do. And we worked with them, and they didn't have mapping turned on for Nemsis values. They weren't reporting any values in drugs or medications to us, or procedures. I said, here's what you need to do. Your vendor's going to send you the information on what you need to do. I don't know the exact steps they do. I said, but we're going to turn you on into Nemsis 3 sooner so that we can get your data faster, and your software vendor is going to send me the numbers that I need to complete the report. By working together and clicking everything together, we solve the problem. And that's what I'm here for. I like problem solving. I don't like it when it doesn't go well, but I like problem solving. Skills utilization reporting. So how, we want to look at, our education and training department, it does a fine job of sponsoring courses across the state at all levels of care. And we want to know, how many times are we doing supraglottic airways? Of course, I had to look up what a supraglottic airway was because they didn't have those when I practiced. But I looked it up and I found the names and we ran the report and I said, that sounds interesting. So we report on that. Obviously, I report on the naloxone administrations and the encounters associated with that. How much naloxone are we using on a call to reverse an overdose? BLS providers, some of them are going to the 4 milligrams from the 2 milligrams. You know, the little, they look like Catherine spray balls. You know, squeeze the thing once, 4 milligrams up the nose all at once. You know, is that reversing the problem? You know, is that, you know, is the patient improving? Are they getting worse? Are they staying the same? You know, is that naloxone resolving the issue? You know, are we giving it at the right times? Criteria for giving naloxone for a BLS provider: pinpoint pupils, possible occurrence of an opioid overdose, respiratory depression, and diminished respiratory status and unresponsiveness. You know, do you have those four criteria? Again, data can help you look at that and say, are we using our medications correctly? You know, are we using them accurately? So, why should the EMT care? Well, continuity of, I was having a little fun putting the transitions on there earlier today. I just kept going in a row putting them on. Continuity of patient care. Yeah, I treat every patient as if that patient were my family. Every single one of them, whether they're screaming and yelling at me, as my guy a week and a half ago was, because he really did not want to be transported anywhere, until he came to the conclusion it was either us or shiny bracelets to a jail, so then he was a little more cooperative. Or all the way to the sweet grandmother I used to move from a nursing home to a hospital or a hospital back. And every single one of them got treated the same way for me. So that, my patient care document is important for taking care of that person. Again, I don't really want to see, do we cheat them in how anymore? Quality improvement, how can I as a provider improve? How can I do things more effectively, more efficiently? How can our system improve? And then for me, it's all about personal and professional growth. I came into being a provider in 1993, wide-eyed, dewy, and scared out of my freaking mind that someone's life was going to be in my hands. And my very first call was a man being transported for back surgery, and I knew about the call 12 hours ahead of time. But all the way from there to the car accident, you know, structure fires, car fires, burns, and God help me, labor and delivery. The last call, I mean, everybody was, I want a stork pin, I want a stork pin, I want a stork pin. I want absolutely nothing to do with getting a stork pin. Did I get up and go on the call? Yes. Did I regret it? No comment. And system analysis. You know, how do we analyze our system? How can we be better? How can we be more effective? How can I as a provider be better? And how can I help make my system better? Okay. Apparently I didn't do that one well. Why should the agency leader, the QI coordinator? You need to comply with 1202 and 1203. If you're not complying with 1202 or 1203, who are you going to hear from? Right there. If you're not hearing from him and you're hearing from me, it's really not good. Rich will get a kick out of this. You know, when it's interesting, when I call an upstate agency, by upstate I mean anything north of New York City. When I call an upstate agency, you're who? What? Oh, you're not Joe or Mary. You're not Mike or John. You're not Ross, Ed, or Jim. I just don't think all the names in Western New York. Mike's not helping me over there. He's reading his email. You're not one of those. Why should I care? I call New York City. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. I never identify where I'm from. No, this, is so-and-so available? I'm sorry, he's not available. May I take a message, for you? And I said, sure, this is Peter Brody. I'm calling from the New York State Department of Health Bureau of EMS. Well, hello. Oh, he just walked in. I guess that's okay. I get to talk to so many people that way. It's hysterical. The little fun I have calling your city.
Never there, so it's okay.
What's that?
We're never there, so it's okay.
Yeah. So, it is kind of entertaining. Billing capabilities and revenue recovery. Being able to bill is important for agencies that do it. It's important because they need to be sustainable. Agencies need to be sustainable to help sustain our systems, because grandma doesn't care, when she falls, or she's having a stroke, or grandpa's having an MI. Our system needs to work to help them. They're our most vulnerable people out there. A kid falling off a playground at school. My nephew was transported when he was 3 days old. Again, for quality improvement, because every agency should be doing it, good data leads to informed decision making. Your bosses, I assume you're not the CEO of the company, right?
No,
No? Just a guess.
no.
I don't know who is, and I'll just make that assumption. Because if your boss is, if you're the CEO and you're the billing manager, we need to talk about delegation.
Yeah, no.
Just a thought. They're going to ask you for data. What's our payer mix? What's our reimbursement like? What's our cost per call? Those are all things that between you and the CFO need to be able to provide that. Either ways that we can cut cost. If we're using naloxone, on 80% of our calls, do we need to look at a better vendor? Do we need to look at buying in better bulk? Do we need to look at the life sustainability of the naloxone on the shelf? How much are we wasting at the end of its expiration period? Are we buying in efficiency? I don't care if we're paying more in postage, if we're actually getting it and maintaining it so we're not losing it on the shelf. All that is driven by data. And they're going to come to you looking for a fair chunk of that. And again with system analysis. Really need to move the transition on that. Nemsis. All right. Nemsis, for anybody who's wondering, stands for the National EMS Information System. Did I know what Nemsis was when I started this job? No. Did I get a 3-hour story of it when I started? Yes. Have I learned much more about it since I started, and do I appreciate it a whole lot more? Absolutely. As an EMT, I didn't really understand it before. Now, as I said, we're moving from 2.2.1 to 3.4.0. Windows 95, Windows 10. So there's more mandatory fields. And I was asked when I was doing this talk on the road, do you know how much more time it's going to take to complete a PCR? And my response was, did you do a study? Find out how much longer it would take? Well, no, because I'm computer literate. And I get that there are some agencies out there that have some providers from 18 to 80, to be a nice range, where some of them are not necessarily going to be as computer savvy as others. To give you an example, in 1997, when I bought my very first home PC, I had a Smith Corona typewriter that had a screen. My mother thought that would put me on the internet, and wanted to know why it did make the funny dial-up noise when I dialed in AOL like it did on my computer. My mother would not be a good user of Nemsis. She also has no interest in being an EMT, so that kind of helps the matter. But there's more data fields. There's more requirements. The 3 things that happen to a patient after you administer a drug or perform a procedure: patient improved, patient got worse, or patient stayed the same. It's whether you're giving naloxone, whether you're giving epinephrine, whether you're giving lidocaine or amiodarone. And I'm showing my age here with some of these drugs. Adenosine, that's still around. I love that one. I loved giving that as a critical care tech. I just like watching the monitor. It was the coolest thing. I only gave it a couple of times. You put a traction splint on, did pain level improve? You put the traction splint on, you did it correctly. Do you have positive PMS before and after application? And did the patient with circulation restore? All that can be documented. And all that can be done. How much of a medication did you give? I read a PCR. Excuse me, I analyze PCR data. I don't read PCRs. I read my own, but my own system. But you analyze data, and it baffles me. You give naloxone. How much did you give? I squirted it up his nose. Okay, squirted up the nose is not an option on the list. So let's try this again. How much did you give? I squirted it up the nose. Okay. Did you give the whole thing up the nose? Then that's 2 milligrams. All right. I squirted it up the nose. Okay. I got that. So you gave it intranasally. So you check the box that says intranasally. What's the box right under? Let's see. What's the drug right alphabetically right after naloxone? No. You're an ALS agency. What's the box right after naloxone?
I don't know.
Got me. Offhand.
Is it
Uh-huh.
Metro?
How many times did people give naloxone sublingually? to treat chest pain. I called the agency, I said, are you doing a study? Because I'm really curious if this works. If I get my patients, to lift up their tongue, or if I can squirt this under their tongue and this is gonna work, this is awesome. And he's like, no. And I said, well, 75 times last quarter, you documented that you gave naloxone sublingually for chest pain. Oh. Would you like me to send you a report? No. We'll fix it. I said, well, okay. It's not happening in all of your counties, but go ahead.
I get what you're saying, but from doing the billing, being on the road, and all that kind of stuff, you should be able to go into the back end of your software and pre-program that based on the medication, so they don't have the option to choose a wrong route.
I agree.
Okay.
But I received the data.
Okay.
I can't change
I'm
it.
just thinking outside the box. Okay.
Oh, you're not thinking outside the box,
Okay.
you're thinking correctly.
Okay.
Allow me to tell you, you are doing very well.
Okay. Okay.
Mike's favorite phrase to me is, go man, go.
Okay.
He's trying not to laugh at me back there.
I regret that every day.
But he keeps repeating it. What comes after intraosseous, alphabetically? What's that? No. Intraotic. You know what that means? Huh? What's that? In the ear. So I'm looking and I'm like, this is obviously a checkbox problem. Why in pre-hospital medicine would we think we need to give a medication in the ear is beyond me. But, if it's a study and you're looking to see if this is effective, knock your socks off. Really handy if I knew that, but I'll call you and I'll ask you. Agency heads really don't like it when I ask that question. So, before intraotic or before intraosseous is intraocular. And like, no, I turned down LASIK surgery. There's not a snowball chance in hell I'm sticking a needle in somebody else's eye. So there's a reason the glasses are up on top of the head. So because I need to see the screen. And Mike can tell you they live on top of my head. Yes, sir.
I have a question about Narcan.
Sure.
For the most part, we push enough Narcan so they get breathing 10 or 12 times a minute.
Mm-hmm.
No idea how much we put in.
If you're using one of the pre-filled syringes and you've expended the syringe, it's whatever's in the syringe.
Yeah, but with the sprays, you just kind of tap it in a little bit.
Okay.
Wait, I don't understand. We just got the sprays. They're like the Flonase thing. And they're 4 milligrams.
Yeah.
And when you put it in, you don't have a choice, the whole thing goes in.
So it's 4 milligrams.
I'm not understanding your question.
You just sort of tap it easier.
Yeah. Some ALS protocols are titrate to effect. Some people may have been assaulted by someone who's highly interrupted in the past, and they might have a different method of doing it. I'm not supporting that. I'm encouraging everyone to follow their own protocol.
Okay. I stand corrected, you just corrected me.
Okay. Are you two from the same agency? Okay. That's a plus. All right. Earlier submission, faster access to data. The standard currently is that the month's data must be submitted by the 10th of the following month. Under the Nemsis 3.4.0 standard, the expectation is as close to real time as possible. You send the PCR to the hospital, the PCR goes to the state. It's that, that's the expectation. That allows us to stay ahead of things. What other health concerns can we look at, with EMS data? Flu? What other flu-like symptoms are out there? Are there a lot of car accidents at key intersections? What are the fatality rates? I do a report every month on motor vehicle fatalities. These are all things that we can look at. And the sooner the data comes in, the sooner we can look at and see where the problems are. So the Nemsis transition, and I haven't forgotten about your question. I have 2 more slides. The thing here reminds me I have 2 more slides. Yes, sir?
electronically, and then with the phone, and the fees where you have to be submitted before the 15th of the following month. Is that set up fees, or is it really?
You file on paper?
We used to.
Right.
No,
Your PCR platform is either set up to submit monthly, or it's set up to submit to us as soon as the call is finished. It's usually one of the two. Sometimes they program them to send the previous day. Sometimes they program to go at certain hours during the day. Sometimes they just go when it's done and it sends it.
we don't have either of those, we do manual, just actually submit the data.
Who's your platform?
Industry.
Image Trend will be very happy to work with the state of New York to ensure your data is submitted in a timely and effective fashion, mostly because we receive your data
So.
on Image
It's the
Trend.
5th or the 6th, and then I'm hearing the dates when it's due.
Your data is going to start coming through to us automatically. You're not going to have to do it. When you make the move to the elite system, which is Nemsis 3.4, it's going to happen systematically for you. I know that because I talk to Image Trend like 12 times a week. Mostly because we're programming Nemsis 3.4.
We just had an issue with a captain that decided she wasn't going to submit anything for 3 months.
Oh, yeah. And my good buddy over here is going to be in touch with her.
She never got the phone.
She
Well,
will.
it's not gonna be from Jeff.
Right.
We're running stuff.
What's that?
That's why she
Lost rental stuff.
Oh,
Right there, rental stuff.
Yeah, we're in Westchester.
oh, you'll hear from Richard. And if you're not hearing from Richard, I will remind him tomorrow that he needs to call you. Richard is very good.
Yes, yes.
I don't know where everybody's from.
No problem. I'll help you out.
I appreciate it, boss. All right. So Nemsis transition. We're doing this, you know, I looked at what other states have done, and Mike and I talked about this, and, you know, we do what's right for New York. New York is not, you know, the size of Rhode Island. It's not the size of Delaware. New York is a very culturally and geographically and socioeconomically diverse state. Whether you're going from Montauk or Niagara Falls, Jamestown to Plattsburgh. New York has different needs and different expectations across the state. People are going to need to transition differently. So we mapped out a plan where we're going to bring software vendors live over time, and we're going to work with the software vendors to make sure their data transmissions are going well. You know, and as I've told anyone willing to listen, if we turned everything on all at once on June 1st, which by the way is day after tomorrow, we're not turning it on June 1st, we're turning it on the 5th, but if we turned it all on June 5th, by the 5th I'd be in this Capital District Psychiatric Center pulling my hair out. Because things that don't go right would require attention, and it would be all over the place. You know, it's just the nature of the beast, you know, and when you make a change like this. But we're not changing, and by taking things in slowly, we're learning from those mistakes, or those challenges, or those setups over time. And I'm able to work directly with the software vendors, you know, one at a time, to say, this is working. This worked for Image Trend, this worked for EMS Charts, this worked for Zoll, this worked for Health EMS, this worked for ESO, this worked for iCloud, this worked for IPCR. You know, let's work together to make all of this work. You know, okay, well, I don't understand why this is set up this way. All right, let's take it back to the beginning. You know, this is what the Nemsis standard is. You know, we'll take a field, you know, E-exam 20 is the one we were talking about today. You know, we'll go out, we'll look at it, what are the possible data points there? What does the Nemsis schema say? What does the New York State Supplemental Data Dictionary say? And then we put, and they're like, oh, I see what we're doing wrong. You know, piece all that together, and then they can say, give us half an hour, we'll fix the programming, and we'd like to send 5 PCRs to see how they do. Fine. So they send them over, we check the data, we validate the data, it comes back, it starts working, and then we start sending more through. You know, we started doing that with one vendor 2 weeks ago yesterday. You know, and the only blip in the road is I forgot to put one provider number over there for them, and that was my error. We moved the provider over, and everything started coming through the way we wanted it to. The very first call that we brought into Nemsis 3.4 was from Westchester County. It's an inter-facility transport. So I was very excited. Image Trend is like, can you be this happy of every call? I said, well, I've been working on this for 7 months, so it's finally working. So I went to the CMAC meeting, and our new director was there talking, and he says, I don't see Peter here, and someone leaned over and nudged him and said, he's 2 rows behind you. You know, and he says, if he's here, that means it's good. 2 thumbs up. We're getting data. So this way we're able to work with a smaller number of agencies where we're able to work to make things happen, to make things move. If we're running into problems, we can address them on a smaller scale and make sure things are happening so the data starts coming through the way we want. The better we get the data from the word go, the better off we're going to be down the line to do system analysis, to drive the right decisions. We're going to have that information there, and people start getting used to it. They may complain about the additional data points and the additional data failures, and in 6 months they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. I know what I got to do to get through this, and they're going to either take their wand, their finger, or their mouse, and they're going to go through it, they're like, I don't know what I complained about. Give them 6 months, they'll stop complaining. Or they'll find something else to do. So, EMS agency, staff availability, when we go to make this move, probably going to be in touch with someone from MSTAR. When you and your agencies come across, and we'll look to make sure things are working. Please don't blame it on the day you're not there, because I will find you and say, something's not working, you gotta help me fix it. Something's not working, you gotta help me fix it. Okay. Well, Zoll's not coming across till third or fourth floor. So, but how can we work to do that? And we're going to do one platform at a time. We're developing a platform. We're developing a plan for each software vendor, and where we need to. I know with Zoll we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do it, so we do it with MSTAR. We're going to need to do it with Multimed. We're going to need to do it with MPress. We're going to need to work with all of those agencies, all of those, because you guys host things. So you guys make the changes that need to happen. So I will start working with you about 6 to 8 weeks beforehand. We'll develop a plan for how it's going to work, and then we'll make the switch, at a given time, and then we'll start watching the data come through. And if there's a problem, we turn it off. And then we fix the problem, fix the charts. If you have to send them back to the provider, you send them back to the provider so they can make their own documentation, and then you fix it and send it on. But this way, we're mapping correctly. What we're looking for is coming through, and the more attention we pay to that at the beginning, the more likely we are to have better data down the road. Now, I'm very particular, which of course drives Mike bananas at times. Because I'm like, all right, well, I found this problem, and I want to go fix it.
So if you're looking for Zoll third quarter, then we're just going to continue sending
version 2 data for a while.
Okay.
Simply because we start receiving data on June 5th doesn't mean that your data needs to change then. We're going to work with you on that change date. And we're going to partner together to make that happen, and Jeff is going to be part of that mix as well. Because there's some paperwork you have to file a 5136 Department of Health form. With Jeff, he's going to get that up to me, but it's not going to have your go live date on it. Your go live date is going to be left blank. We're going to fill that in when you and I select the dates, but so that I already have the form. So then all we have to do is implement. Yes, ma'am?
We're starting with our EPCRs. Our go-live date as of now is June 25th. So,
What vendor are you using?
DSO.
Okay. Are they having you go live on 2 or 3?
Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. Are we going to go live with the new one, or
ESO is 3rd or 4th quarter as well.
okay.
But
So
but if you're working with us and we decide that the best pathway forward is that you document in 3, we'll just get your data down the road as long as the New York State schematron is applied to it. And then we'll work through, and that's the historical data submission. We know that there are some clients, some vendors out there that have clients that are already in Nemsis 3.4. Some of them will have historical data before the state schematron was applied. And we'll work with you to get that through. But that requires direct contact between the vendor and the agency, and in your case, the billing company, and the billing manager, to make sure that all that happens, because it's gonna come through two different ways, two different channels. And we're able to do that, so we can make that work. Because your current data, say for example, you started recording in Nemsis 2 or Nemsis 3 on May 1st, and I'm picking a random date. Yeah, you started documenting in Nemsis 3 on May 1st. We're going to pick a day where you're going to apply the state schematron. Say you start documenting in Nemsis 3 on May 1st, and you say, okay, we're ready to apply the state schematron. I'm going to tell you, turn it on June 1st at midnight. And then, as soon as you tell me all of your PCRs from May are done, then you and I will have a conversation, and I'll set you up with an account to be able to submit them through. When you're done submitting that data through, and you tell me everything crossed, say you tell me there are 1,000 PCRs, right? Excuse me, I'm making up the number, because if I remember, you do 24, 25 a year. If you tell me that you have 1,000 in the month of May, we'll get them all through, I'm going to turn off that channel. And then all your current data will go through the channel that has the state schematron applied. And we're going to monitor both of those at the same time. Does that make sense? We'll work with you to make it happen. I don't work Mondays until October because I'm taking a class, but yeah, we'll work with you Tuesday through Friday, and I'm there to help make this work for you. That's my job. 867-5309. I have business cards here. I'm showing my age on that one, aren't I? I have business cards for you. But the best thing to do is email. Because my phone rings off the wall. You email me and say, can we set up a time? And I'll set up a time when you want to talk. So, but we'll get your historical data over. So if you guys, if we decide that the best pathway for you guys is to get line on Nemsis 3, you work with Jeff on getting your 5136 filled out. You just won't get it back until you're ready to submit data to the state. But we'll have a conversation. Does that make sense? Yeah, and as I said, yeah, then there'll be the current data submission will be through two different channels. Originally, we wanted to set this up so that we would have all the historical data before June 1st. That didn't happen for a variety of reasons, but ImageTrend has worked with us quite well, and they're wonderful to work with on this particular project. I have an amazing implementation coordinator who should be sainted. So, because she's doing quite a lot for New York State right now, and we're very grateful for the hard work that she's doing. And she's doing it to me, so. Mike can tell you that takes some time. So, and then we're going to look at data and compliance. You know, are you getting a lot of rejects? In New York State, Schematron has a lot of failures on it. There are 240 or 50 state, 41, I believe it is, state rules, all of which are failures. So if you give a medication, you have to have a dose, you have to have a volume, and you have to have a response. If you're missing one of those, you get it back. Then you have to submit it. Yeah, then you have to fix it and send it back. But if you're giving a medication, you should know how much you're giving. Yeah, are you giving adenosine? Are you giving 6 or 12? Right? It's an important question. Doc wants to know, how much did you give? Oh gosh golly, I don't know. It's a sure way to get another visit from this fellow over here too. So, or from Richard in your case. There are resources out there. There's an Nemsis data dictionary, and we have plenty of time, so I'll go out and I'll show you where to find that. There's a list of Nemsis 3.4 qualified and tested platforms. It's who are the software providers who are actually qualified by Nemsis to submit data that's Nemsis compliant. I really have to change some of these transitions. There's the New York State version 3.4.0 supplemental data dictionary. Keep in mind, Mike works for the state, I work in the state. If there's a way to have a long title, New York State perfects it, and the only one that does it better is the federal government. So the supplemental data dictionary you worked on that for what, 2 years? I will tell you, it is a massive undertaking, And I love going to read it. Part of that is I'm a data nerd. Part of it is I like digging into the problem and finding the solution. And I am a data nerd. I keep repeating that. Your Remsco staff. Now I told Jeff ahead of time I wanted his picture to be able to put it up here and say, this is your help desk. I did not get his picture. We'll see if we can correct that before tonight's out. And then there's the New York State Department of Health Bensat staff. I am your first contact. You know, my business card is up here, you know, to anybody who needs it. You know, my boss is Michael Taylor. And for Christmas, I'm thinking of getting him a shirt that says "Go Man Go." His birthday's right around Christmas, so I might want to do that too. But I have to sit in the car with him for another 40 minutes to get to our hotel tonight, so I don't know if that's such a wise idea either. Or I go to buy Dunkin' Donuts coffee, but we found Dunkin' Donuts. We're using 2 different GPSs to get around down here, which is entertaining. Which is funny. I'm not a state employee, so I can't drive the state car. But when I rent a car, because that's what we need to take, he can't drive the HRI rental. So either he is to do all the driving, since we're going to Manhattan, he is doing all the driving, and I'm not driving down there.
I have no problem with the subway, he won't go underground.
Oh, no. That magical underground tunnel system, not on the list. Definite upstater, make no mistake about it. Total upstater.
It's a treat.
Trees are above ground, it's
Treat,
trees.
not a treat, treat.
It's a treat, no it's not.
Unless you've experienced it, you can't say you
Oh,
want it.
I've been on it. I always have an escort who holds my hand the whole time. I mean, the little 8-year-old boy, yeah, nope, he's not doing it, he doesn't ride it enough. We had this discussion. I paid $120 for round trip taxis. I also got reimbursed for it too. And he's like, what are you gonna do if they don't pay you? I don't care, I lived. They're like, where's Metro Tech? I don't know. It's in Brooklyn, that's what they pay you for. So, first and foremost, for tonight, and provided I'm able to get an internet connection up here, I can show you that. If not, we can arrange to do a webinar. It just occurred to me I didn't have an internet connection on my computer. I'd like to thank Jeff from Hudson Valley, Richard from Westchester, Nancy, and Joe from New York City for putting this together, for putting this little adventure together. And Mike reminds you, will remind anybody willing to listen that I'm the lunatic that put the schedule together. I am a volunteer outside of my job. I do a lot of volunteer work. Some people think I'm crazy. I do a lot of volunteer work. I like what I do. It's not all EMS based. I've worked with youth leadership programs. I've raised money for muscular dystrophy. I like the 5Ks because I exercise. Try to look a little more like 4 months pregnant instead of 5, but it doesn't always work. I like doing work like this. So coming out at night is never a problem for me. If I need to arrange time to meet with someone remotely in the evening, more than happy to do that. Also more than happy to do it between 7:30 and 5:30, Tuesday through Friday. Remember, I happen to be at the office too. But, so this is no problem. The 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning meeting, that was my doing. Sometimes I think I need to be, clinically insane, but let's see if this will let me get on the internet. I like this. This is complimentary Wi-Fi for guests of Putnam County government. Wants a username and a password. I'm like, I'm a guest. I wasn't there.
Secret?
I think it's either Putnam and Guest. They don't really tell us.
I would have been really fun. I'll tell you what. I typed in the username Putnam Guest, and the password says "Lady says so." Obviously,
No,
that was not correct.
No, I think it's Putnam for the user and then Guest for the password, right?
Really?
Yeah. Or it used to be.
Hot diggity. Michael also tell you there are days I'm easily entertained as well. Hey, he's tolerated my friends calling my cell phone. Because I have a friend of mine, he has his own ringtone. And he messaged earlier, he doesn't realize I'm in a session today. Oh, look, here we go. Thank you very much. I spent 20 minutes earlier, I'm like, how the hell do I know? All right, so this is the Nemsis 2 bridge. Jeff will have a great deal of fun setting you all up with, setting the agencies up with accounts on Nemsis 3 when the time is right. I want you to keep two things in mind. I am a super administrator of this program, so I have access to everything. So I may have more bells and whistles and clicks and buttons than you will. So if you think I only have 3 tabs, why does he have 5? Because he runs the show and can turn it on and off. I said that to someone, they were like, that's not very nice. All right, so if you're looking for the New York State validation rules, they're right there on the sign-in page. Comes up as a Microsoft Excel document. Yes, that's fine. It's only the 9th version of this. Can everybody see this up there, or is it too small?
It's way too small.
I'm listening.
Has there been any updates in the last couple of years on validation?
No. Okay, apparently I thought I was moving too fast. I didn't think I was moving. Hello.
Now, Image Trend is a vendor like ESO?
I'm sorry?
Image Trend is a vendor like ESO?
Image Trend, ESO, EMS Charts, Zoll, Health EMS. And keep in mind, I am not making any reference or suggestion on any particular platform of that. I'm not simply saying it because he's back there laughing at me. No, I say it all day, every day. I do not recommend a platform. I encourage you to look at what works for you and for your agency and what's going to work for your members. All right, is this large enough?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just picked a large number. All right, so here at the top, now how many of you are fluent in Microsoft Excel? I hope the billing lady is. Okay. I used to do hospital billing. I became very fluent in Excel very rapidly. I did fundraising too. So let's look at the active ones. So we'll get rid of the inactive ones. All right. Then we'll sort these by smallest to largest. You can use 100 points. You go from 100 to 0 for not indicating what the disposition of a call is. This is disposition: canceled en route, canceled on scene, no patient contact, no patient found, transported dead on scene, treated, transported BLS, treated, transported ALS, treated, transferred care, treated, put on a helicopter, put in someone else's ambulance, put them on the back of my flotation device and carry them off to the hospital. You do that one, I want to go watch you do that. Just saying. So you can lose 100 points. You can go from blue to red by not putting a disposition. And in Nemsis 2, this is only points off. In Nemsis 3, you don't put this on, you get your PCR back. Because it's not done. Because in 5 years, 6 years from now, you know, if you're called to say, well, what'd you do with the patient? There's nothing on your PCR to indicate what you did with the patient. Yeah, I have no idea. 25,000 calls a year. How many providers do you have? 200? Roughly? All right, say they're all full-time. I know they're not. I know they're not. We survive on part-timers who save our lives. Let's say you have 200 and you do 24,000 a year. That's what? 1,000 calls a person? 2,000 calls a person? 2,000 calls a person, 6 years, that's 12,000 calls later on an innocuous grandma fall down, go boom. You know, what did you do with her? How the hell do I know? Seriously? You think I'm going to remember that? Show me a picture of the house. Jog my memory, you know? I'm 48 years old. I don't remember 6 years ago. I don't remember yesterday.
Amen to that.
100 points for loss for transport hospital disposition. Indication of how the patient was dispositioned from the hospital if admitted is missing. We don't really collect that anymore.
No, I know.
E20.4, transport mode from scene. How'd you go to the hospital? Lights and sirens, lights and no sirens, start hot, finish cold, start cold, finish hot. If it's not there, it's 50 points. Date, time, vital signs taken. Seriously? Yeah, take the vital signs. They're magically between the time you arrived at the patient and you dropped them off at the hospital. Pick a time. What time did you do it? Yeah? 50 points for not including the time. Crew member level. You an EMT? You're paramedic? Grandma Moses? You know, which one are you? 50 points. Type of destination. Where'd you take them? Hospital? Nursing home? Skilled nursing facility? Car for accredited rehab facility? Take them to an apartment complex? Take them to a doctor's office? Dialysis center? Where'd you take them? 6 years from now, you gonna remember that? Oh God, no. Crew member ID? Reason for choosing destination. Did you take a pregnant woman to a cancer center? She was in labor, went to the nearest hospital. Probably not a good choice in where you landed. But I don't like delivering babies. I don't know if I said that twice earlier, but nothing to do with it. Incident county missing is 25 points. Where did it happen? Now, the one who had challenges filling out incident county is the air services. We landed where the pilot told us to, and the crazy lunatic on the ground had 9,000 flashing yellow lights to tell her, red lights to tell us where to land. We got out of the thing, we didn't say, the first question was not, how was the patient, what county are we in? I get that they have a little issue with that. We try to figure it out, but it comes in handy when we're looking at where trauma is happening. You know, where are these things happening? Medical surgical history. Past medical history must be documented. It could be that you don't know. Documenting that you don't know and clicking that box that says unavailable, patient unresponsive, is perfectly legit. You have a patient who fell 12 feet from somewhere, whacked their head, they're unresponsive, and the people around them are like, we just worked with him, he showed up yesterday. You know, how many union shops are there here? Are there in New York City? You know, and John Jones showed up because that's where his shop steward told him to go. Go over here, work for them. He falls off the ladder. Well, that sucks. They dial 911. They don't know anything about him. He's just there to work. But you tried. You documented that you don't know. The information's unavailable. You know what? It saves you 25 points. Current medications. Again, I don't know. Dago meds, which is what we used right in the 90s, by the way. Dago meds doesn't work. I did like that one in the 90s though. You show up to the house, here's your meds. I'm going to mail you a vial of life form. You might want to fill that out.
That's not one of those special things you told me Central New York is building in, is it the bag of meds thing?
No.
I'm not gonna see that in reports, am I?
No. No.
Single meds, I like that.
Height of fall, 25 points. Systolic blood pressure. What age do you, what age is the minimum that is required for taking the blood pressure? 3. Age. Yeah. Seriously. Getting the kid to sit still, when it's a newborn. And again, don't like pregnancy pills.
What do you put? If you can't move when you're
Unable to obtain.
But
But that's an option. That should be an option in your platform. Pulse rate, pulse rhythm. And again, if you're not able to get these, you need 1. You want 2 full sets of idle is the standard. Total Glasgow coma score. What's the minimum Glasgow coma score?
3.
What's the max?
15.
That's right. Your systems should be calculating it for you. I know mine does. Thank God it puts those options in there. I don't remember the numbers, that was years ago. Electronic documentation made it easy. Look, I have no idea what the hell I said. Complaint reported by dispatch. This is important. How many times were you called to a fall down, go boom? Did you end up in a cardiac arrest? How many times did you get called to a cardiac arrest and they're sitting there staring at you wondering why there are 12 people in their living room? Because they sent law enforcement, fire, and EMS. And fire sometimes comes with 1 or 2 trucks, lots of people in turnout gear, and they're all looking like, my house is not on fire, why are you here? And then the EMTs show up and they're like, okay, there's a lot of people here. You know, law enforcement's there going, no, it's nothing to worry about. But we can analyze our system and our dispatch, you know, because dispatch is a key part of our system. We can look at it and say, you know what? Are you answering these calls correctly? Can we analyze the system and what's being sent out? You guys are probably notified by a 911 center that you have your 911 calls. And you sit there and you look at me like, seriously? You know, unit, route, date, and time, patient's home zip, these are all 1 points. These are the nice ones. You can still stay in the blue by missing these. Incident, zip code, patient care report number. I love it when they come through without that. Seriously? You didn't assign it a data point? EMS unit type of service requested. People look at me like, what does that mean? Was it a 911 call? Was it planned interfacility transport? Were you doing a standby at a parade? This is Memorial Day, right after Memorial Day. You know, was this, you know, were you at the Italian American Festival? Were you at the Greek Festival? Were you at the whatever festival? I mean, I have lots of them in New York City. But, you know, what type of event were you at? You know, what type of service was requested? Were you requested to stand by at a fire? If you're requested to stand by at a fire and you treat someone, how many PCRs do you do?
2.
That's right. 1 is an emergent call, it's the fire standby, that is an emergent call. And the second one is what you do for that patient. And God willing, it's an alley on the finger.
Do we leave the first one, the standby open, or do we close it when we pick the patient up?
If you leave too many of them open, your system's going to have a stroke when you have lots of open calls. So at some point, you have to close it. Sorry. Gender. We're not getting into the bathroom discussion. Chief complaint. Every patient has a chief complaint, even if it's an interfacility transport. You know, and they have to. Transport is not always the best chief complaint because that's the type of service requested.
What percentage of pain?
I'm sorry?
We get like 60% of our calls are pain.
Pain?
Pain.
P-A-I-N? 60%? Where the hell do you live?
They have 2 prisons in their area, it's okay.
Oh. You know what they do at Coxsackie? They like to swallow razor blades. Because then they get an endoscopy, and then they complain that they shouldn't be sent back to the prison. They get 3 days out of the prison. Granted, you get to stay in a prison ward with people staring at you. Yeah, I got sent to a prison. It took me 25 minutes to get to the medical ward.
Sounds like great.
We get a lot of
Sounds like where?
Green Haven.
No, it's Coxsackie. And like,
25 is not a good one.
yeah. Patient ride to destination date and time. Well, you brought them somewhere. What time did you get there? The FAA has to tell you how long it takes you to get to where you're going. Arrived on scene, unit en route, unit back in service. These are all times. Arrived at patient. This is important. What happened prior to your arrival? Back in service, dispatches are all times. Type of delays. You know, did it take you 35 minutes to get someone out of the house because they live on the 9th floor of a walk-up in the middle of the Bronx? Yeah, because you had to go down 9 flights of stairs because they didn't have an elevator. Well, that's the whole
ABC.
CME I went to last night is patients on CPAP do not walk down the stairs. I made it a point to keep repeating that to us. Is this a mass casualty incident? Age in units. Your system should really calculate that based on the date of birth, but be careful if your patient's over 100 to make sure you don't make them 3 months. Because if you tell them, you're showing up with this, and you show up with Grandma Moses, they're going to look at you because they have a pediatrician ready for you. All right. Outcome of prior aid. Did the patient improve? Law enforcement gives all law enforcement officers in the state of New York carry naloxone. Every single one of them. It's in the statute. Every single one of them. They get there for an unconscious, unresponsive. Many agencies are required to stage, to make sure that the scene is safe, so that you're not walking into somewhere where your life is in danger. Your life is more important than your patient's. Never forget that. But you look at, did law enforcement give them enough naloxone to bring them back? You need to record that. Chief complaint anatomic location. This is not looking for the biliary valve. It's the abdomen. T-complaint organ system, cause of injury. I know some lady in here who can tell you why this is important. Did they slam their fingers in their house door or in their car door? Because that changes how they get paid. The ambulance gets paid very well. Hospital, not so much. Cardiac arrest, etiology, resuscitation. So this is all available on Image Trend's website. You know, minus 1 point. I will tell you, I put point values on these validation rules when I set up them in Image Trend, but it's utterly pointless because if it fails, you get the PCR back. And then if you send them over 20 at a time, you get the entire file back. So you have to fix it in order to, or take it out of the file in order to send it back. So if you send over
So
25.
one bombs out of 20, is that what you're saying?
One bombs out of 20, one bombs out of 200, one bombs out of 2,000. You get all 2,000 back. And then if you forget to resend those 2,000, who are you going to hear from? You're going to hear from Richard. The rest are going to hear from John. It occurred to me he's from another region.
Peter, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I mean, I understand that these data points are
Oh,
important.
this is the pregnancy question.
Oh.
Just to show you that it was here, I've been looking for it.
I'm assuming that all the software vendors, in order to be Nemsis compliant, have to make sure that their software has these data points.
That's right.
Which means those data points have to be required on the PCR.
One would
So they should not be missing when they're sent.
One would think that that would be how the software vendors would think. However, I repeat, I do not recommend any particular software vendor. Have I said that? Have I made the disclaimer on it? Okay.
Well, I can tell you, I've worked with several software vendors.
Oh, sure.
And normally they are straight on point, because when you're building your back system for your EPCR, they're saying, this is Nemsis, you have to have this, you have to have this. So they have to be on, and you have to make them required
Yeah,
before the PCR can be closed.
The major ones will do that. 'Cause
You do
a lot of
24,000
small
calls a year. You do 24,000 calls a year. You're going to want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Correct.
Your job, you as an individual, I would assume, relies on you making positive recommendations to your employer that lead them down the right pathway and keeps people like him from calling you. Or it's better if I call you, because it gets more fascinating faster. And if Mike calls you, that just means I'm on vacation. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So, because he has 9 million other things that he has to do now that I do this. And if I could bring up the one screen, I have a little tag that says what I do. You know, I'm the chauffeur, I'm the travel agent, I'm the secretary, I answer his phone, and he's not there. But in all fairness, he answers mine when I'm not there.
Right.
For you, you're going to do that. Some other agencies may not have the laser focus to be able to get to there. Some agencies may say, this is going to work better because this does my NIFRS reporting on top of it because they're fire-based.
Correct.
So, you know, they may not have the laser focus that you do. I'm not commenting on any of those platforms, but you're going to be looking for these things.
Right.
When in the variety of different agencies, whether they're municipal, commercial, hybrid, volunteer, not-for-profit, across the state, they're all going to have different focus points. One of the reasons I do this session, and this is the, oh dear God, 7th of 11, 7th of 10 that I'm doing over the last 4 months, is to get the message out there. 1, that Nemsis is not a scary beast. 2, it's going to make your documentation better. Yeah, and when I was doing this setup, and when the setup was done for Nemsis 2.2.1 a very long time ago, that made it better at that point as well. But I look at this from a clinical aspect as well as a data aspect. And I take that very seriously when I look at things. Yeah, but I also understand there's a business aspect to what we do. You know, this is not, you know, and I remind my agency of this all the time. First off, this is not a club. I'm not having a bake sale to raise money to send glasses to kids in Uruguay. I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning because someone's in cardiac arrest. That's my job. I'm a little cranky the next day, but thankfully Mike doesn't notice. But, or if he does, he doesn't say anything. But, you know, I get up because that's what we do. Most people in this room are EMTs or they're related to someone who is. That's what we do. And I constantly want to improve myself. You know, and I hope that the system out there wants to improve itself as well. You know, and that's how I took this approach. And I said to Mike, you know, this whole concept of going out in the field was something I'd had in the back of my mind, and then another region said, I'd really like it if you came out and shared your message because people are tired of hearing from me. So I said, well, what do you think? Well, you have travel money, because I'm funded by a grant. So he said, what? Go, man, go. Little did he know what that meant. Little did I know what it was like to drive across the northern part of the state, across the Adirondacks in the middle of winter in a snowstorm. Not one of my better scheduling efforts, but the very first trip he tried to take me on last year was the day the blizzard shut down the state. And he called me, he had the day before off. He said, I really don't think we should go tomorrow. I'm like, you think? we were going to Binghamton and then Syracuse and then up to Watertown, all in one day, leaving Albany and doing
We
that.
would have gone to Binghamton before they closed the highway to do it in the streets in Binghamton.
Oh, yeah. Okay, take my corporate credit card, let's go find a hotel, we're gonna be here for
Yes,
36
much
minutes.
known with the bus, yeah.
So he called me and says, I don't think this is a good idea. I was like, really? So this is where the validation rules are for
Mind you,
Nemsis
if you
2.
had said, let's go, go man, go.
Yeah, no. I stayed at my ambulance garage all day. Parked my car inside, I didn't have to shovel snow. But I did get to use a snowblower that day. I loved doing that. All right, so these are the Nemsis 2 validation rules. The Nemsis 3 validation rules haven't been published yet, but we're going to see that they are. That'll take a little bit. We want to get through a couple of implementations before we do.
Is there something similar for all the vendors, like we use ESO, or we would have to go to the image trend website?
These are the same for everybody.
Right, but is that the only place we can find them?
For Nemsis 2? For Nemsis 2, yes.
Okay.
For Nemsis 3, they're not in a format you would understand, unless you happen to do data programming for EMS software.
But I mean,
And if you do, God bless you, because you can make a boatload of money working for some of these places.
will they be, I guess, is
They'll
my
be available,
question,
yes.
for each vendor?
They will be.
So right now we have to go to image trend to see the validation?
To see Nemsis 2's validation. Nemsis 3's
So
are not.
ESO doesn't have them?
ESO has them for Nemsis 3. The EMSO has what's called the schematron. Schematron is what the data is expected to look like, and what is allowed and what is not allowed. ESO, EMS charts, Health EMS, ZOL, iCloud, IPCR, Red Alpine, you know, the other 18, 15 vendors that we have in New York State, they all have this information. We sent them the supplemental data dictionary. The supplemental data dictionary is how we built the validation rules. So the validation rules are built into Nemsis 3. And we built them. We're going to wait a little bit to produce a document like this until we're sure that everything is working the way we want it to. The very first data to come through with these validation rules applied is scheduled to be submitted around 9:30 on Tuesday, June 5th. 9:30 in the morning. And the very first platform to do it is ImageTrend. Obviously.
Imagine that.
But I mean, it's logical. If their program can't get it through, you know, how could we expect others to?
Is there a state site we can go and see these?
For Nemsis 3,
Yeah.
they're not published yet.
You said it would be on.
They will be, but they're not next week. We're going to make sure everything's working before we do. Okay?
For Nemsis 2?
For Nemsis 2, these are all on ImageTrend. This is available on the opening page of ImageTrend.
Image trend, is there a login we need to get and see that?
You can see Jeff. You're in Hudson Valley, Rumsco?
Yes.
You see Jeff. You have what, 5 counties?
6.
6? You see Jeff. You see Richard. Everybody else, see Jeff. He is your help desk. And I love the fact that he's recording this, because I keep doing the same thing.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So what are some of the more validations we have in Nemsis 3?
Nemsis 3? What's the biggest thing I've been harping on for the whole night?
What have you done before, after?
Right. What have you done? What did it do? You know, did the patient improve, get better, get worse? Did you gave a medication? Are the units there? Did you give 1,000 milligrams? We had people documenting they gave 1,000 microliters of a medication. I'm like, seriously? Your system let you do that? And then we have to convert it. You know, or they gave 1,000 milligrams of something. You know, but we have to convert it. But you know, we had a data problem with one particular platform that sent over that they gave 69,247 milligrams of naloxone. It would take you 14 ambulances to get that many vials, and I'd be really impressed if you gave all of them all at once. You would need a monster-sized syringe that they used to give cows things, and it wouldn't work. But those are the big ones. There's the major focuses, you know, some of the major focal points in EMS right now are stroke, STEMI, sepsis, and trauma. The big four: stroke, STEMI, sepsis, and trauma. Those rules are built in. Last known well. Sugar. Did you test the blood glucose? Your agency may not be qualified to perform, but I recognize that not everybody is. You know, is there sugar? Did you notify the hospital? Same thing with stroke, so that's for stroke. STEMI. STEMI is, what is your 12 lead? That type of thing to go be a paramedic. And then sepsis, looking for the signs, the advanced notification to the hospital and traumas. It's looking for certain things. How far did they fall? What was the type of trauma? If it was in a car accident, is it blunt? Is it penetrating? How bad was the car? Which side was the car hit on? Where was the patient in the car? Cardiac arrest. Was it witnessed, unwitnessed? What was the care before you arrived? What did you do when you arrived? What was the outcome? Dead on scene, transported ALS, transported BLS, transferred care, that type of thing. Delivered a baby. Okay, what happened to the baby? Is there another medical record? It's those types of things that are built in as well. Again, the baby I want nothing to do with, but we still have data points we need to do.
You drive?
I'm very happy to drive, but unfortunately at my last pregnancy call I was not driving. I was getting nauseous. Really, it's a beautiful thing. I want absolutely nothing to do with it. But I get up and do my job. One lady in labor, got a kick out of me. Said, no, let's drive fast now. Drive fast now. 25 miles to get to the hospital. Let's go. For sure. Yeah, no, I wasn't that rude. I wanted to be, but I wasn't that bad. Any questions? Any more questions? Tom? All right, it's 8:17. We finished 13 minutes early. Is anybody going to complain?
No.
I didn't think so. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, I have a handout up here that has all the slides. So if you'd like the slides, by all means, knock your socks off. If you have questions or other things you think you want to email me, I have my business card up front. By all means, feel free to email me. Goodbye, Internet. Thank you for shopping.